All right. Welcome to Waste Some Time with Jason Green. I'm Jason Green, and today we are going to get some advice on martial art movies to watch while we're stuck at home. And we've got a really good person to give us that advice, and you're going to find out more right after this. Just wanna waste some time with you. Sometimes it seems too good to be true. Nobody out there can waste time with you. All right. The fact that you clicked on this video means you know who our expert is today. And you may have seen him in the movie Karate Kid 3. Let's welcome William Christopher Ford. And there he is right there.
Hey, how you doing, Jason?
I'm doing good. I'm glad you can make it to do this.
Well, I can't think of a better time, a better person that I would rather not waste time with, but spend time with this morning.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. You know, William, you and I are both sporting the long black hair. You know, I think we're keeping it going.
I'm trying to be like you, brother. So
it's funny. I was going to say the same about you. So
okay.
So William, you know, first things first. Take us back to 1989, Karate Kid 3. How do you go about auditioning for that movie? How do you even hear about it?
The secret is that you have to be sleeping in bed on a Saturday morning, dreaming nonsense, and get a call from your best friend who says, "Dude, we got to go down to Burbank right now because they're doing an open call for Karate Kid 3." And I'm like, huh, what? And so my buddy comes and picks me up in his yellow Camaro, and we go zipping down to Burbank to this open call. They're looking for the new villain in the Karate Kid 3 movie, and we get there. There's 1,500 kids in line. Kids meaning, you know, guys, girls, people of all shapes and colors. Didn't know Sean Kanan at that time, but he was in that line too. Apparently he got in the building and got a screen test. So we're waiting, and it's pretty daunting. You know, I'm like, man, 1,500 people or so. You know, that's truly a cattle call. Jan Elvelson, the director, comes out with his cameraman, first assistant director Clifford Coleman by his side. They're going down the line and dismissing people pretty quickly. You know, it's pretty much a thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Thank you very much. And they stop in front of me about 10 feet away. My buddy is like, dude, I think he's coming over here. And sure enough, he came over, and I was, you know, like, you know, and he says, hi, what's your name and how old are you? I said, I'm 22 years old, sir. And he says, well, you know, honestly, you look a little old to be, you know, we're looking for somebody who still looks like they might be maybe just right out of high school. And I was bummed, but I said, may I give you a picture and resume, sir? And he said, oh yeah, sure, no problem. And then he just continued on. I thought that was that. A week later, I get a call from his casting director, Carol Jones, and she says, we have not cast the part of Mike Barnes yet. Would you please come in to read? Which I did. And I gave the absolute most terrible audition in the world. I didn't think so at the time because Carol was very nice. And afterwards she said, that was very nice. And she shook my hand, and I was like, and I was green and naive. And I'm like, she said I was good. She said I must have gotten the part, you know, not realizing that, you know, Carol was just a really, you know, good-hearted person, and, you know, she was being nice. And then time went by. I'm like, well, how come they're not calling me? You know, this is going to start soon. And then, you know, you come to find out, oh, you know, it's already been cast. So, you know, you start thinking about it. It's like, maybe I ought to take some acting lessons. You know, it's like, maybe I wasn't that good. And, you know, I don't know if you remember the audition scene, but it's kind of like, no, I want your title, you know. And I was like, you know, doing it kind of happy, and no, I want your title. So I don't blame them for not casting me. So, you know, I go out for a jog about a month later, and I get back, and then on my answering machine, before they had something called voicemail, there was a message from Carol Jones, and he says, hey, you know, we've cast Mike Barnes, but we actually need some henchmen. So we'd like you to come down and, you know, maybe you can, you know, do that. And of course, I was like, yes, of course. I hench very well. So I get down to Burbank, Warner Brothers studio, Columbia Studios at the time. And Pat Johnson's waiting for me on set, you know, and he's of course, the stunt coordinator, and he plays the referee in the movie. Legitimate black belt under Chuck Norris, I believe.
Yeah.
And, you know, Mr. Johnson, how are you? And he says, oh, yeah, yeah, you look okay to me. But, you know, ultimately it's up to John. And he asked me a little bit about my background. You know, okay, you know, are you a black belt? Yes. You know, I'm sure I'm a black belt. You know, who do you know? You know, that kind of thing. Um, so we're waiting around. Finally, Ralph Macchio shows up, and of course I'm like, that's Ralph. It was like surreal. And he gets introduced to me and he goes, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Ralph." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know."
Mhm.
So they kind of explained to him, what my purpose is. And he's like, "Oh yeah, great. Sounds great." Also waiting there is Sensei Fumio Demura, who was Pat Morita's stunt double. And I had known him for years because of the, I used to compete in his karate tournaments, and he's from Japan. My mom's from Japan. So we all kind of had this connection there.
Yeah, and he's a legend amongst martial artists. So.
Oh, he's one of the best, and just the epitome of what a martial arts master. I mean, he really is the real Miyagi, right? In that sense.
And he did the scenes in the first movie, right? The scenes where Mr. Miyagi fights them off in the skeleton costumes against the fence. That's Fumio Demura doing the stunts.
Yes, sir.
You're in front of some really, and we should mention John Avildsen, for those who don't know, directed the first two Karate Kid movies and directed Rocky.
Yes,
So you're surrounded by these legendary people, and this is not an unknown movie anymore. You're now on the set of a franchise.
Yes, sir. It's pretty scary. But Sensei says, "Oh, what are you doing here?" I explain. He goes, "Oh, okay." He just kind of takes it in, and John finally shows up, and they introduce me to him, and he looks at me. "How old are you?" I said, 22, sir." He's like, "You look young enough." So I'm like, maybe you don't remember me from last time. But the kicker was that Sensei Fumio says to John, "Hey, John, this kid okay." And John was like, "Good enough for Sensei, good enough for me." And that was when it was like, "Okay, get him hired, let's take his measurements, and it was like, "Okay, we're going to start rehearsal today." So I was like, "Okay, good thing I wore my cargo pants," but, and that's how we started. We rehearsed for a few months. And then what happened was there was another gentleman, a kid named Daryl, not Daryl Vidal. He was a blonde kid. He was the first Mike Barnes. I hung out with him for about a week. He was nice and everything. Less acting experience than I had. And he was a nice kid. He looked like a surfer kid. He actually looked more like Ron Thomas did in the first Karate Kid movie. He had that kind of hair, really good looking. And after a week, it was like, "Oh, where's Daryl?" And it was like, well, we had to let him go. And, he just couldn't bring what they needed. And they called Sean Kanan in, and the rest is history. And, the ferocity that Sean brought to that role, and just, why he continues to be popular and why that character is still popular today, because, that he really brought it.
Yeah, well, he's the bad boy of karate now. Yeah.
Thank God they didn't cast me in that role, because it would have been a total. I'll admit it. It's like I'm the first one to admit. I was like, oh, I would have been awful. So Sean was really the perfect role for that, the perfect actor for that role. So that's how it went.
The lesson is you got to get up and take those chances, because you just never know when it's going to work out.
You got to have a good friend who's willing to, number one, help you move. Number two, take you to the airport at 3:00 in the morning. And number three, get your ass out of bed when you're supposed to be somewhere, and at the end of the day, man, I am still blessed from being in that movie, and still grateful. And I get fans who contact me from Holland or the UK, all these places. And I'm just so thrilled. And, even just being on these shows, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I get to be on a show. And it's really cool.
Yeah, you could have had no idea at that time that, 30-something years later, that you would still be talking about Karate Kid. And as everybody knows, this universe of Karate Kid has become a massive thing now. And the fans are really loyal to the product. And so a little bit about your part in the movie. You originally had no dialogue. You were, your character, Dennis. So Dennis and then Snake. And Snake was portrayed by John Avildsen's son, actually. And
yeah, I heard you had maybe a line into where his whereabouts are.
Someone I worked with was really close friends with John, and so he thinks that we can be able to find him, and so we should do that, because I don't think anyone's seen him.
Let's find him and get him on your show, and that'll be an exclusive. It'll blow up, I'm telling you, because he is like everybody's asking about him. So
yeah, it's him and Chad McQueen are the two that everybody's looking for.
Yes, sir. If you can get those two. Oh
That
my
one
God.
might be a little harder. But so you guys are sort of the you work for Terry Silver, and Terry Silver puts you guys with Mike Barnes, and
Mhm.
you're going to be the one who's responsible,
For
for
the
training.
training.
Yeah. And but so originally you have no dialogue, and tell me how that changed.
I was still, I was hired as sort of a stunt actor. My character had no name, it had no dialogue, it had a lot of action. So, I was still getting in the union. I was still getting my SAG card, which I was happy about. I was still being seen. But at some point, they asked me, hey, you guys should have names. So John asked Snake and me, or Jonathan and I, to come up with names for our characters. And Jonathan said, I'm going to be Snake. And I'm like, well, maybe I should be something a little bit more normal. And I was a little panicky because, they're kind of waiting on my answer. And I just went, Dennis, Dennis. I'll be Dennis. I was thinking Dennis the Menace, So that's how that came about. I probably could have picked a cooler name, but Dennis is what came to my mind. And they were like, okay, you're Dennis. And
Stuck with it.
that was cool, that was a little bump up that I wasn't expecting. And so we get into the scene where we jump into the bonsai shop, and there's the whole mac and cheese thing, and Mike Barnes, like a cat, kicks Jessica in the stomach, which was like, oh my.
Shocking at the time, by the way. You wouldn't do that in a movie now. I mean,
there's a lot of things about movies from the 80s where you're like, I don't think we can do that today. But we're doing the scene. I go in there, and I bust up the shoji screens. He goes, Dennis, he didn't sign it yet, and I shake my head, and we did the whole shoji screen thing, and then Daniel and I circle each other, and so we had this fight, and Ralph Macchio, being the generous soul that he is, he says to John, hey, give this guy a line. I need something to play off of, and so John says, okay, Dennis, you say you take off when you push him. And that's how I got that line. And Ralph, he didn't have to do that. He's a generous soul. He was very professional on set. He's kind of a quiet guy, but you start talking to him about theater acting, about New York. You start talking to him about dance, like tap dance and things like that, which Ralph is amazing at. And he opens up, but he's kind of a quiet guy, but he never mistreated anybody. He's very cordial, comes in. And I recently got a chance on Josh Gad had this thing called Reunited Apart.
Yeah.
Did you see that? And
yeah, it's great. You should watch it.
I got a chance after 31 years to properly thank Mr. Ralph Macchio, and it felt so good. I mean, I said, hey, man, thanks a lot. That was cool, right? But, thinking about it years later, it's like, man, I really don't know if Ralph, realized how much he affected me and how grateful I am. So I got a chance to do that, which, they cut to the look on Ralph's face, and I was just like, okay, we're good. I got it off the bucket list. And it was just, I'm so grateful that I was able to do that. And, thank you to Josh Gad for having me on the show. But that's how I got my line in Karate Kid 3, to make a long story short.
And you got beat up by Danny LaRusso, which is kind of an honor.
It is kind of an honor, but here's the thing, if you think about all the people that has fought Daniel in the Karate Kid universe, very few people have actually gotten beaten up by him in an actual street fight. And I'm one of those people, and as I said earlier, it's kind of like they build me up. I'm the trainer, man. Ooh, look what he did to the shoji screens. And then, like Boba Fett, I got thrown into the Sarlacc pit, and people are like, is that it?
The end of the scene is very weird because so Mr. Miyagi comes in and he fights the other two guys, and suddenly, I don't know what happens to you.
Well, originally they shot me. I threw a punch at Miyagi. Miyagi comes in. I get up on there first, and I throw a punch. And this was something that Sensei Demurai didn't stand in for Pat for. Pat Morita actually did this himself. He puts both hands up. He grabs my arm, one hand on the wrist, the other hand on the elbow, and he pushes. and I go flying over onto my back, and then I hightail it into the car, and then which leads to where we're doing donuts. Excuse me. So we shot that, and I had like a thin elbow pad on here, and I was landing on the hard wood, and Mr. Morita was actually kind of concerned for me. He's like, "Hey," he called Pat Johnson, and he said, "Are these kids okay? Because they're taking the fall pretty. Can we use a pad or something?" And Mr. Johnson was like, "Pat, you don't worry about these guys. This guy here, he's a black belt. He can take it." So, I come from that old school, School of Hard Knocks. I legitimate karate black belt, and it's like, we just did it. It's no big deal, So, but they cut that out, and we're watching the movie, and it's like, hey, what happened to that? And it's very abrupt. You notice it in the film, like something's missing. And they never told me why they cut it out. And my guess is maybe it just didn't sell, for some reason. It might have looked too like magical, like, where he just kind of grabbed my arm and went, and then I might have oversold the throw because I was just like, whoa, bam,
Wow.
I was going full WWE, man, where I was just, bam, all right. And I think they may have looked at it and went,
Well, we're going to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah.
I'd
love to see that original footage. There's a lot of, I'll never see it, I'm sure, but if that's in the vault somewhere and they decide to like bring it out, it's like, whoa, that would be awesome.
Tell me about this picture right here. This is on this. Where was the tournament scene filmed for this movie?
This is on the Burbank lot. This is actually, they rebuilt the whole tournament scene. This is a set.
Gotcha. Yeah, because the first movie they went to a real school.
Yeah.
And a university. And so it's funny, this time they had it together. Let's just
Well, I walked onto this set for the first time and it was just like, whoa, I was transported back into the first movie, which is still my favorite, but what an amazing job they did. And they recreated the Kreese dojo also. They did some scenes in the original Taekwondo studio that was owned by one of Simon Ree's students. I believe his name was Sensei Danny, if I'm not mistaken. But they recreated the dojo on the lot too. So, like the scene where Mike Barnes kind of gets thrown through the door, and where Silver and Kreese are confronted by Miyagi, and Miyagi and Silver have that fight. That's not in the actual dojo. That's in a set mock-up.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, people are so interested, in seeing where all these things took place. Now, how about this photo? Tell me about this. Look at all these bad guys in one place.
Well, there's me in my Batman shirt, and Batman was very popular. It'd come out in 1989 with Michael Keaton. So, man, there was just a ton of Batman stuff available at that time. So, that's me in my Batman shirt. Billy Zabka in his white jeans there. Yuji Okamoto in his acid wash jeans, and the man in the middle is Mr. That's Sensei Ayala, who was a karate sensei. This was at Fumio Demura's tournament. He has one in every February, and he invited us out to be sort of guests of honor, and we got to give out trophies and to the kids and things like that. So that's where this was taken.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, it's not often you see a photo with one of the villains from each of the Karate Kid movies. So
that's true. And, 2 out of the 3 of these guys have proven themselves not to really be villains. So we still need to find out what Dennis's backstory trauma is, and, why he turned out the way he has. But Yuji, wonderful guy. Owns a great restaurant up in West State of Washington, Hawaiian food. Billy Zabka was interesting because he came onto the set when we were filming part 3, and he was with Rob Garrison, I believe, at the time. And they just come. I don't know if Pat Johnson invited them or they just came to visit. And that was the first time I had met Mr. Zabka. They were both very cool, and Rob Garrison, God rest his soul. He was like, this is amazing. This is like the next generation of Cobra Kai. And funny thing is that after we were finished filming, a couple months later, I was on the 101 freeway going to an acting class because I decided, you know what, I really ought to learn how to do this stuff, so that I don't, embarrass myself. And I'm going to my acting class. I think it was the Film Actors Workshop in North Hollywood, and that was being taught by Eric Klein, who's still a good friend of mine. But I somebody's waving to me on the freeway, and I look, and it's William Zabka. He had remembered me from the time he met me on the set. And he was going, dude. And I was like, oh my God, William Zabka just waved at me. And it's Johnny from Karate Kid. So, just like those kinds of experiences are just so like, I'm just a regular dude that just happened to be in this movie. And it's like, this is so weird, but so cool at the same time.
Now, obviously, you watch Cobra Kai.
I do. I have. Yeah. Yes, sir.
And so, spoiler alert, at the end of season 3, there's a phone call and everyone's wondering who it is. And most likely it would be Terry Silver. So
that's the logical assumption.
You think it, right?
I will say that the producers and the writers, John and Josh and Hayden, they're pretty good at the red herring sometimes. And I think sometimes you just never know what to expect with them. They're really good at kind of getting you to think, hey, this is what's going on. But then they put a twist on that. So they may deliver something like that, but we're not quite sure how they're going to deliver it.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I think they also like to pay off. Do you know what I mean? They cheated Elizabeth Shue for a long time, but it paid off.
If you foreshadow something and you don't pay it off, or you pay it off in a way that's like really, really just not satisfying, right, that can be detrimental because, you build up people's expectations and then it's like, well, what is that? And, I'm going to use The Last Jedi as an example, which, some people liked, a lot of us didn't. And it was because they kind of they didn't respect the source material and they didn't respect the fans. At least that was the perception, right? Mm-hmm. So one thing about these guys, just like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have done with Mandalorian, is that they respect the source material and they respect the fans. And that is what's important. And that's why these guys are doing such a great job. And that's why I think
that's why it's a success. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And, personally, what I like is when Daniel and Johnny go, okay, wait, just let's just talk and let's talk about the past. And it's like, well, and then when characters revealed and they're really just talking like humans, those are my favorite types of scenes, not so much the action stuff. I mean, that's part of it and that's exciting, but I like the stuff that reveals character where you're going, oh, that's why they did that. When they brought back Elizabeth Shue and then you kind of found out her side of the story and you're kind of going, wow, both of these guys were kind of jerks to her,
right.
So that's what I love. I love the revealing of the characters and you're just going, oh my gosh, they totally flip it and they humanize it and dimensionalize it. So that's what I think the gold is in this show.
Now, you couldn't tell us if they contacted you, obviously, or if you've been in discussion, but there is a chance that maybe we're going to see you at some point. They've really have brought back a lot of people, from that Karate Kid universe. And you are an active martial artist, and you're still an actor as well. And you're out on the circuit, sort of doing appearances and things. So it wouldn't be such a far-fetched idea.
It's anything is possible, and definitely they've laid down the groundwork for the characters in Karate Kid 3 to return. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
I think that speculation and imagination is great for the show and great for the fans, because if you say too much, then it's just not fun. So I agree.
I had to binge watch it at midnight so that no one could spoiler alert. At 5 a.m, I'm like hanging on the edge of my seat because, I don't want it to be ruined.
Well, that's great. But that, that ending at season 3 is like, whoo, Okay, man. The boy, do they know how to do cliffhangers, man? I tell
Oh, they
you.
do it. They do it amazing. And
Yeah.
luckily, this time we don't have to wait as long. There was a much bigger gap between 2 and 3
Yeah.
than there will be between 3 and 4. So,
Well, yeah,
you know
and
what?
getting on Netflix was a great move. I think they were just trying to make that transition. I mean, it just blew up. And I like some of the newer characters. Like I like Miguel. I think like that's I have a student who reminds me of him, just a good kid. Trying to do. He's like the son of a single mom. I really relate to him, and I like Dimitri. Because he's that funny geek who is kind of irreverent, and he kind of accepts his own geekdom, and he's like, you know what, that's who I am. I don't care, and I love that about him. So those are two of my favorite characters on the show, actually.
Yeah, and I think they're doing a good job. They get you to go back and forth with these characters. You're not sure if you like them, and then you do like them, and they do an amazing job.
Of
Well,
course.
let's talk about some martial arts movies now.
Okay.
When I was a kid growing up in New York, we had a thing called Channel 5, and they would have the Kung Fu matinee of the day, and we'd go to the theaters in the Bronx and see the Five Deadly Venoms. This was the kind of martial arts background I had. So I asked you to come up with a list of movies that people can watch while they're at home, and maybe some they haven't seen. Now, you didn't pick what you consider to be the greatest of all time. You picked what you think people should catch up on and watch. Is that correct?
I picked my own personal favorites, and I believe that they are other people's as well. So I've come up with a list of 6, and I'm happy to share it with you.
Yeah, and you have some original selections here. I'm going to get you started, though, because I feel like this is the one we got to start with right here. 1973, Enter the Dragon.
Yes, sir.
Can't have a martial arts movie list without this movie on it. This is the first big budget, massive action-packed martial arts movie. And I want to point out Pat Johnson from The Karate Kid and your stunt coordinator on The Karate Kid Part 3 is in Enter the Dragon.
Yes, he is.
He plays a mobster in the beginning of the movie with
no, Roper, or we gotta break something. He's got that mustache, and it's just amazing.
I'll tell you a funny Pat Johnson story. I've got a pretty cool collection of memorabilia, and I have some really cool Karate Kid stuff. I should have had it ready. But so I have a personal bank check from Bob Barker, and Bob Barker made the check out to Pat Johnson for karate lessons. And the back of the check and the back of the check is endorsed by Pat Johnson. It's a pretty crazy thing. So
yeah, you got to send me a picture of that. I would love to see that.
I will for sure. Yeah, I got to share that. So tell me about tell me the first time you saw Into the Dragon.
You know what? Okay, so when I was taking karate, I was a brown belt. At that time I was getting a little, I was kind of forced to take karate. At first initially I thought it would be really cool because I wanted to be, David Carradine and Kwai Chang Caine, and then the first live experience I had with karate was, watching Fumio Demura perform live with his team at Japanese Deer Park, which was like a theme park they had back then. But then, our karate school was invited to see a screening of something called The Game of Death, which was like, hey, we've taken the footage and we've made this movie. And so there was a premiere down in Hollywood with Shannon Lee was there, Brendan Lee was there, Linda Lee was there, Dan Inosanto was there, Mel Novak was there, and so that was the first time I'd ever experienced Bruce Lee at all. And, I didn't realize that much of it wasn't him. Much of it was like, some of it was like a cardboard cutout that they actually or pasted, But they get to this end scene where there's the pagoda and he climbs up and the real Bruce Lee shows up, and then the audience goes nuts. They haven't seen this footage they haven't seen this footage yet. People are taking pictures, and I'm kind of trying to figure out what's going on. Like, why is suddenly the crowd going crazy? But I was mesmerized and amazed. And so that moment changed me, and I became a Bruce Lee fan at that point in time. Now, they re-released Enter the Dragon. This was like 1979-ish, I think. So then they go ahead and they re-release Enter the Dragon. So my mom, I get my mom to take me, and we're going to the theater, and that was it. I mean, Game of Death started it, but Enter the Dragon was it for me. Yeah. And I eventually, I convinced my mom eventually to buy a VHS machine. One of these, you push it and it goes, it's really, and you put the thing in it, and I still have it, my original VHS copy of Enter the Dragon. And it was just like the most inspirational, exciting thing that I had ever seen, and still ranks as, you know, one of my top movies. You know.
Yeah. If you're new to the world of martial arts movies, you can't pick a better place to start.
Yeah, it's great, and it's Jim Kelly is great in it with his afro, and it's just, I mean, it's definitely dated in a lot of ways, but that's
Sure.
what makes it great. You know, I like the original theatrical cut better than the Blu-ray version. There's some extra scenes in there with the monk and everything, which I feel takes away from the flow of the film. However, they're interesting to watch. I think they would have been better as a more of a like a DVD bonus, you know. And there's a voiceover in the end where he's in the mirror hall of mirrors and you can hear the monk's voice. I just thought that was a little too much on the head. So I got to get a VHS player now so I can watch my original.
Yeah, you can relive it. Absolutely. Okay, well, now you tell me which one you want to go to next.
Okay, well, you know, since we're talking about Bruce Lee and that era, let's talk about something that was kind of going on at the same time. This is a movie called The 36th Chamber of Shaolin, 1979. It was known here as Master Killer. It was we had something on Channel 13 called Black Belt Theater, I believe, and they premiered.
Yeah, I know what that is.
And you know, I remember watching this movie, and my mom, dad, and my mom, dad, and I happened to be watching this movie, and surprisingly, you know, my dad didn't really like these movies, but he stayed all the way to the end. And he goes, "Wow, that was a really good movie," and it was because of you know, Gordon Liu, legitimate Hung Gar practitioner, and his brother. His brother directed, you know, so many of these movies, and you know, they showed legitimate, you know, Hung Gar technique, and this journey, you know, it really just shows the journey from being, you know, a student who's being persecuted, who, you know, whose friends get killed. He enters the temple, and his original goal is to get revenge. And eventually he, you know, obtains enlightenment through going through these 35 chambers. And then eventually he founds the 36th chamber, you know, which I guess is for, you know, people who don't know martial arts, you know. And you know, it could be said that the 36th chamber is actually within yourself. It's not a physical thing. It's you know, it's sort of like the awareness and the knowledge that one gets, you know, after going through the training. So it still holds up. One of my favorite films, beautifully shot, beautiful. You know, I'm a Gordon Liu fan. You know, he's still the man, you know, up there with Bruce Lee with me, and I love this film. And you can watch it. You can watch it on Netflix. It's still available.
Yeah, that's one of the great things. A lot of these movies you can go watch them for free, you know, right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, tell me the next one, William.
Okay, so we're going to jump ahead a little bit. Okay, Ip Man, which is a more recent film. This was, you know, Ip Man was Bruce Lee's teacher, his Wing Chun teacher. This is a movie starring Donnie Yen, directed by Wilson Yip. The choreographer was Sammo Hung, and I guess he was assisted by Tony Leung Soo Hung. And this is an account of Bruce Lee's teacher, Ip Man. Now, this is a biography, but they take a lot of dramatic, artistic license with it. It works for the story, but a lot of it just, you know, it didn't happen in real life, or
Right.
at least not in the way they portrayed it. But very beautifully shot. There's some wonderful fights in it. Donnie Yen does a tremendous job. He actually learned Wing Chun for this movie. Then there's a fight. One of my favorite fights in the movie is there's this group of people that are coming from a competing town, and they want to establish themselves as kung fu experts. So they go beating up all the martial arts experts, and then they find out that you know, somebody says, well, yeah, you beat up all these guys, but, you know, you haven't fought the best. And they're like, well, who's the best? And the guy says, Ip Man. And then they go to his house and they challenge him. And he doesn't want to fight because his wife is going, I don't want you breaking all my furniture and all my dishes and everything. And the guy says, oh, so you're going to, you know, you're going to bow down to a woman. Okay. That, you know, of course. And that's why you practice a woman style, because a woman founded Wing Chun, right? So his wife just looks at the guy and goes, okay, fight, but don't break anything. And that's when, you know, he kind of rolls up his sleeves and everything, and he just schools this guy, Louis Fan. He just schools him, and it's just, I love that fight. And it's so cinematic too, the way they shoot it. But I love this film. It's just, it's so good.
And this movie spawned a bunch of sequels, and this was a lot of people's introduction to martial arts movies of a different generation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Donnie Yen became, you know, the modern martial arts star, and
Yes.
this movie sort of the the beginning of that.
Yeah, I've seen the sequels. I think they all are fall short of the original, as it oftentimes happens with films, but they all have merit, but the first one is the best one for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what's next?
Let's go with Kung Fu Hustle.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Director Stephen Chow, who also directed Shaolin Soccer. He uses a lot of the same cast. So, if you watch Shaolin Soccer, it's like, oh man, it's like a theater company where you see all these people from the first movie. But Kung Fu Hustle is just sort of like a beautiful homage to not only Kung Fu movies, but kind of like gangster movies and, screwball comedies. Cartoons. There's like some stuff in here like you would see in like in a Roadrunner cartoon, but just very, very hilarious. But there's this underlying lesson of self-forgiveness, because our hero starts off sort of, as a criminal, and then eventually he gains enlightenment and he becomes a true hero. But you get to go back into his past as a childhood, and he had this traumatic event that happened that sort of set him on this path to where, he was like, man, people suck. And, he became very, very bitter. He kind of forgot who he was, but he rediscovers that. And that's the beauty of this film is it's got this wonderful lesson hidden within this amazing Kung Fu movie. And this was actually, I believe, directed by Yuen Woo-ping, who's one of the greatest fight choreographers in Hong Kong cinema. So, it's good, very enjoyable. Even if you don't like Kung Fu movies, this one you might.
Absolutely. This is a movie that if you're not used to martial arts movies, there's something for everybody. This was another movie that brought sort of martial arts to the main audience. This was it reached a lot of people. There was a lot of movies at this time. Also before this, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. There was a lot. They became big Hollywood movies. But for someone like you and I who'd seen martial arts movies, we had seen Jet Li and we had seen Shaw Brothers, and we'd known a lot of these things. But Kung Fu Hustle is one of these movies that brings it to the mass audience.
Well, it's also got a lot of heart. There's some really good acting in it, and there's some really poignant, nice, touching moments. That it almost gets me misty-eyed. The girl, who's in this. We see her as a little girl, and we see Stephen Chow's character as a young boy, and how they, grow up, and what they become. And at the end, it's ultimately about redemption and self-forgiveness. I just love this film.
Yeah, it's a great message. Okay, what's next?
Jet Li in Fearless.
Okay.
Directed by Ronnie Yu. This is the story. It's another Yuen Ping coordinated choreographed movie. And there is a legendary figure in Chinese history named Ho Yun-jia. If you watch the movie The Chinese Connection with Bruce Lee, he plays the student of Ho Yun-jia in that, who at the beginning of the film is dead, and he kind of goes on to avenge his death. But this Jet Li does play Ho Yun-jia, and he basically is this martial artist who challenges all these foreign fighters that come in. All these foreign martial artists. He challenges them and beats them. And we're talking about boxers and swordsmen and wrestlers and, of course, other Kung Fu practitioners as well. But again, it is at its heart a story of redemption. If you follow the whole film, he becomes very arrogant early on. He starts, beating everybody, and he becomes very arrogant, very smug, very careless, and he suffers a loss. And he has to figure out a way to forgive himself and to redeem himself. And this changing character wouldn't have happened without the loss. But it's just a beautiful story arc. But the fighting is just amazing too. And Jet Li kind of, I love his Once Upon a Time in China movies. This is sort of like but he's still at his prime in this movie. And
this is considered his last movie using those styles.
That's what they say. I think that's true, right? That's how they were promoting it.
It's how they promoted it. I saw that he had other movies after this, but I think the tag is that it was the last time he used that style that we were used to.
Well, I certainly think that this is, if you're going to call this the last of his martial arts movies, then this is a good one to say that with, because it it is a classic, and it is just great from beginning to end. So he might have made other ones after that that are still period, but I don't think they match up.
Yeah, and for those who only know Jet Li from his American movies, he obviously had an amazing career before that. The Once Upon a Time in China movies are incredible. Yeah, at the time there was nothing like it, and so those are always good to look back and check out.
He was also in Lethal Weapon 4, which I didn't really care much for, but his scene is interesting because he does that scene with Mel Gibson and Danny Glover where he kind of comes down the stairs. I saw something on YouTube where they did an audience reaction of Jet Li fighting Danny Glover and Mel Gibson in that movie, and they're gasping and oohing and awing, and they're kind of cheering for Jet Li in this
Right.
scene, and I'm just going, oh my God, that's so amazing, So the movie, I loved the first Lethal Weapon movie, but I like the second one. He kept getting less and less lethal as the movies went on, and then of course, unfortunately, controversies came out later on with Mr. Gibson, which he seems to have rectified in recent years, but the Lethal Weapon movies just kind of became formulaic for me after a while. But
Jet Li was a fresh spin on it, though. Yeah,
he certainly was. And there's no questioning his greatness in the history of martial arts movies for sure.
Yeah. So give me the last one here.
Okay, the last one is not a Chinese movie. It is actually set in Indonesia. It's The Raid Redemption.
Yeah, and I haven't seen this. And this is everybody loves this one.
Directed by Gareth Evans. It is starring, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name, Iko, who you see in a ton of movies also. It uses a lot of a style called pencak silat. The story is very, very basic, and they're just basically raiding this big apartment complex that's full of criminals and gangsters. And, they kind of have to do a little bit of a rescue operation as well. But the fighting in there is brutal, but just like, wow, the way they shoot it, it's amazing. And you can really see that these guys are doing it. One of the things I love about Asian martial arts movies is that, the stunts are incredible. The stunt performers are just, amazing. And you can see them doing the actual stuff, but the techniques they're doing are just like, oh my God, so yeah, I recommend this one, Jason.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out for sure. When I told my friends about your list, everyone's like, well, how could you not have seen this? This is like of the modern, this is huge. And so I'll have to take a look.
Highly recommended,
Yeah. Well,
not for the squeamish, but if you love fight films and you love martial arts films, this is the one for you.
So he's given you 6 great movies. You can't go wrong. You can go and watch these right now. Between all your streaming platforms, you'll probably find them all for free. And spend a day and have an old-fashioned, martial arts movie marathon. Before we wrap up, William, I want to point out that you have a series on YouTube called 52 Masters. And I think that this is one of the coolest, most original things. I watched it and I said, I want to steal this idea. Not the idea of the martial arts, but so it's for your 52nd birthday, right? You wanted to do, you train in 52 different styles. What a cool bucket list idea. So I've watched a lot of it, but tell me a little bit about it and tell the audience.
When I was 51, I wanted to do something special for my 52nd birthday. And, I'm kind of a fan of like catchy titles, especially if they use numbers, so I was like 52. Well, there's 52 cards in a deck, 52 weeks in a year. Let me see, 52 pickup. So, I was like 52 experts. And I was like, no, that's no good. 52 really great martial arts. And then finally I came upon the title 52 Masters, and it's like, well, not everybody has to be necessarily a renowned master. They just have to be really, really good at what they do. I mean, and passionate and a good person. And so that's why I decided to say, my original idea was take 52 weeks, once a week, train with somebody. At the end of the year, you have, your whole series of 52 Masters. It just didn't work out that way logistically, just because of a number of different things, including the year 2020. So we're a little behind schedule, but I have been able to train with about 27 masters so far. And I love it because I get to be a white belt. I get to go in and learn, and I've gotten to have classes with legends like Benny the Jet Urquidez, Graciela Casillas, Tak Kubota. I did one with Sensei Fumio Demuro, which I haven't released yet. Amin Santo, who is a capoeira master, that was episode 1. But also a lot of these people are people maybe that you've never heard of, but people that I know that are just amazing, and they're amazing people. So what I love is I love the training. I learn something new every time. But the heart of the show is the interview, where I get to sit down and talk with them and have an intimate chat about them. And like, I get to learn about them. I get to learn about their philosophy. And it's just like you and I are doing right now, where we're just, as they say in Hawaii, we're just talking story, That's what the thing is. I don't prefer the interviews where I just have the microphone and I go, okay, so tell me, how'd you get started? And then, I like it when it feels like, oh, they're just two people having a conversation and there's some back and forth. And that's what we get with 52 Masters. So I'm halfway there or so, a little bit more beyond that. It is streaming on Amazon, but you can see all the episodes on YouTube if you type in 52 Masters. And I am going to finish it. It will not take me 52 more years, hopefully. So.
Well, the good thing, though, William, is that people can catch up on it now rather than dive into something. There's a bite-sized amount, and there is a lot to learn. And this is really the glass is empty mentality. You really do go in. You don't let your ego of being a martial artist get in the way. You go in and learn a new style and learn something from people, which really is what martial arts is about. And I think that people, whether they're a martial artist or not, will really enjoy seeing this.
I always like to. I'm a student always, a student of life, a student of martial arts, whatever, and I'm not better than anybody. And, I just want to learn, and I want to be able to take that knowledge and improve myself as a person and share that with people so that they can empower themselves. And you just gotta be willing to be kind of stuck at something and then practice it until you get really good at it, But I, for Karate Kid fans, I also got a chance to interview Daryl Vidal in one of the episodes. I trained with him, and we have a great interview. And he was Vidal in the first Karate Kid movie. He was the Filipino guy doing all the amazing kicks in the tournament.
He's the semifinalist. So he loses to Johnny Lawrence right before the championship match.
And it was revealed in the last season of Cobra Kai that Vidal was actually the champion in the prior year, which was a cool Easter egg. But I also got to interview Sensei Ron Thomas, who played Bobby Brown in the first Karate Kid, who a lot of people didn't know is a legitimate black belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. And man, he shows some really cool stuff in that episode as well. Both legitimate martial artists whom I respect a lot. And again, for the Karate Kid fans out there, if you haven't seen these 2 episodes, go see those 2 episodes. If you're not,
those are good. I've seen them. Those are a really good place to start. If you're a fan of those movies and you're new to this, and you're probably going to get hooked. You're going to want more. And luckily, you got some more to see.
Well, I hope in the next time that I get a chance to be with you, Jason, we get to talk about your Funko Pop collection, because as you can see, I got some here of my own, mostly Star Wars and superheroes, but I love those too, and I would love to be able to check out your collection, man.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some Funko Pops, and then I'm going to show you my my Karate Kid collection, because it's pretty amazing.
I would love to see that. And then I'd also like to talk about your guitars as well, because a couple years ago, I went to the Dallas International Guitar Festival with my crew. Jim Towns and I were directing, and we did a film called A Guitar Story, and we got a chance to talk to people who were involved with Stevie Ray Vaughan and people like that. So, just the whole idea of the guitar. What is it about the guitar that's so magical and mystical? And it just sort of unites people all across different musical tastes, but it's the guitar. It's almost like a mystical sword. So maybe we can talk about guitars in the next step.
William, we got to have you back. And we met at one of these, because I work with Joe Esposito, who sang You're the Best Around. And so we met at one of these appearances and of Karate Kid alumni. And there'll be a lot more of these, and there'll be more chances to do these chat. Also, I know that you appear in the Pat Morita documentary that's out right now called More Than Miyagi. And that is on, I think you can get it on Amazon and iTunes.
Yeah, Amazon, Apple TV, and iTunes. It's available for rent for just a few bucks, and it's really well made and you get to see Pat Morita as a complete human being, flawed as all of us are, you know. So I would definitely check that out if you haven't done so already. And, you know, props to Joe Esposito, man. That dude still has the pipes. I'm telling you, man. Like, you know, you could say, Joe, can you sing It's the Best Around? He'll do it on the spot. And you close your eyes and you're going, oh, my God, I feel like I'm listening to the soundtrack from 1984, man.
He had no idea how many people he touched with that song. For him, it was another day in the office. He thought it was going to be in Rocky 3.
Right.
Avildsen, they didn't use it. Avildsen got it for Karate Kid. And it wasn't until many years later, because me and Joe started doing some appearances, and, you know, kids were coming up with all the Karate Kid lines.
Yeah.
You know, you better be ready for this, because it's about to get crazy. And it has. You know, he had a commercial during the Super Bowl.
That.
Yeah.
That was an amazing commercial. And I'm going, oh, they used the song. That's so cool. And, you know, I have a friend who's he's an MMA fighter. He's also been a teacher of mine, Lyoto Machida. And his brother Chinzo and I are close. And Shinzo was actually in 52 Masters. But You're the Best Around, I think, is one of Shinzo's favorite songs. Like, I think he used that as his fight music when he was fighting in Bellator. So, you know, it's still a great song and inspires, you know, people. But, you know, especially fighters, I think they really dig that song. You know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Me and Joe got to do the crane kick with Dara Vidal at that appearance. So, you know.
That's right. That's right. That was a cool event. It was an autograph show that we did, the Hollywood Autograph Show, and that was really a lot of fun. I got a chance to meet Rob Garrison at that time, right before he passed. You know,
that was that was his final appearance.
Yes.
He passed pretty soon after. But William, we could talk forever. We're going to do another one of these.
Okay.
I really appreciate your recommendations, and I think the audience will enjoy them too. And we should also go watch Karate Kid 3. It's on TV every day.
Okay.
You know, Google it. It literally is playing constantly. So,
well, you know what? This has been one of the funnest shows I've ever been on. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I just had such a good time, and it was wonderful being able to chat with you and share with you about some of the stuff I'm passionate about, and of course about Karate Kid.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and we'll do it again.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Take care, guys.